In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the session view. To get to session view, you can either click on these three lines over here. That'll take you to session view, or you can hit the tab button, and tab will cycle between session and arrangement view. So you can see when we're in session view, we have a different layout. I like to think of session view as being sort of like arrangement view. However, everything is kind of flipped on its side. So this track name here is displayed up here. And then we can add clips here. And all of them would play simultaneously if we press this play button here. So all of these are called scenes. A row that goes across here would be a scene. So if I were to quickly make some type of loop here, so you can see we have audio tracks here. I can drag some loops here. And we also have MIDI tracks. So if I wanted to pull up a drum rack, I can click and drag that here. You'll also notice we have a play button, we have a stop button, and we have a record button. So those will behave as they should. You hit play. And then I can stop it by hitting that. And if I want to record something here, let me find my drums here. Yeah, so now if I wanted to record something in here, let me go ahead and add my metronome here. So we can click this button here. I just hit space to stop that there. Double click it, you can see all the MIDI I recorded. A quick way to quantize here is using the shortcut Command Shift U. That'll pop up this dialog box. And in here, we can go ahead and change this to 16ths. And if you have start on, it'll adjust the start. And if you have end on, it'll adjust the start and end to the nearest 16th notes. And you could even slide the percentage if you don't want it perfectly on the grid. Alright, so that is how you record a clip. You could also record audio. For example, if I had audio. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. So now all of these clips, if I hit the scene play button, really loud. Down here we have mix controls. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. So you can control the volume there. You could also control it here in the clip view. This came quite low. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. And another thing is, if you notice in this clip view, we have this bar here. This bar indicates a loop region. And I can enable or disable that. If, for example, if I wanted this to just play as a one shot, I can hit Command L. You'll see it grays out. And now when I play the scene, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, it'll stop at the end of the clip. As opposed to these, you can see the icon is a circular icon and it'll continue to loop. So now if I wanted to make another scene, I could alt and drag things down like this to copy them. I could click and drag, I believe here. I'm holding alt here and clicking and dragging. You can see I duplicated the whole scene. If I wanted to add some kind of hi-hat here, hit that. Now we should have two scenes, one with a hi-hat and one without. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. And if I switch here, test 1 2, test 1 2. You can see that it took a while to actually start playing there, and that'll be because of this global quantization up here. That just tries to keep everything in your session view synchronized well. So if I change this to 1 bar, it shouldn't take quite as long. Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. And I could stop down here. Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. All right, so now we've kind of taken a look at how we can add clips here. We can duplicate scenes. You can rename clips with Command R. You have a lot of things you could rename. You could recolor clips. You could select arrange clips with holding Shift. Change their colors. You could select an individual and change its color. You could rename this with Command R. Over here on the scene, you could rename this. So this could be our intro. And we could rename this Command R, be our verse. You could recolor the scene. So whenever you want to stop a clip, say this one's playing alone, you can, as long as you find a stop button and hit, this is the master stop. It'll stop everything. Or you can stop here. You could also make it so that when, so you see if I press play on verse, test 1 2, test 1 2, and then I press play on this, which we can chorus. This cymatics loop here stops. However, you can actually right click here, or click Command E, and that'll remove the stop button. So when I press play on this new scene, it should continue to play. Test 1 2, test 1 2. See how that loop kept going? Another thing you can do on this master section here, if you click and drag the boundary, you can see we have extra things that we can adjust. For example, our BPM. So say we want this one to be 90 and we want this to be double that. We can hear how that'll take effect. Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2, test 2, test 1 2, test 2, test 1 2, test 2. You can see it changed all of them to 180 here, so I can actually add a 90 here. And I can switch this back to 90. Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2, test 2, test 1 2. Also, you can change the time signatures here. So the same way you can drag these boundaries here to resize your tracks, you can size these as well. If you hold Alt, it'll resize all of them. Select arrange, resize just arrange. And similarly to our arrangement view, we can group things. So say we have this, and this is another drum rack or something, we can group this to be our drums. So let's go ahead and record something here. Test 1 2, test 1 2. So we've recorded something in here. And now if I press play on just these drums here, let's go ahead and stop everything. If I press play on the group, you can see we just play the group, and then I can stop those two. Stop here. So now once you have some kind of arrangement that you like, if you want to record into your arrangement, you can click here, and this will record into your arrangement. If I hit tab, you can see we're recording everything from our session view. So now if I play the whole scene, 1 2, test 1 2, tab, you can see that's all recording in. Now you'll also notice that the session record button is right over here. So if I click that, it'll record in the enabled track within my session view. So you can see. See, that's recording into that same track. If I then click maybe this one and we try that again. You can see we recorded into this selected slot. So that's the gist of session view of this top section here. Moving on to this mid section, we have our inputs and outputs. And on the right here, I also want to mention that we have a similar kind of style collapsible menus as the arrangement view. So once again, we're viewing our IOs here, ins and outs. We have monitor modes here. We have our audio routing. As you can see, these are routing to this drums group, and this one master along with the others that are ungrouped. We have pre and post buttons over here for the sends. We have sends knobs, which have A and B. These replace these, be A and this would be B. And then right beneath that, we have our mixer controls. So we have a volume fader. You can also see we have indicators of where we're peaking. Test 1. So test 1, 2, test 1, 2. You can see this is peaking at -30, roughly, -12. So that's useful information. This yellow button enables or disables a track. We have our solo button, our record arm button. Underneath that, we have our track delay, which will delay a track in time. So if I were to delay this, start to hear that this is off. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. And then we have these A and B buttons here. So the A and B allows you to create a crossfade with this crossfader over here. So if I say assign our melody loop to B, and let's assign our vocals to B, and then let's assign our drums to A. Now if I hit play on this scene, test 1, 2, test 1, 2, slide over to the right, I have just my melody, and as I slide to the left, we have just our drums. And right underneath that is our CPU meter. This just tells you how much CPU is being used by particular tracks. So the higher this is, the more likely it is to introduce latency. And you can toggle all of these menus on or off with the button here. Very important button to note here is this button here. It's the back to arrangement button. So if I tab here, you can see right now this is in session mode. If I hit this, when I press play, I can hear my arrangement. And if I were to start messing with things here, you'll see that button comes back on. I must have left the crossfade on or something. So yeah, let's put our crossfade back and then we can see that test 1, 2, this is functioning properly again. And once again, underneath here, everything remains the same. Your clips are down here. It's very important to keep in mind your loops because your loop length determines how quickly these loops play back. 1, 2. So if I were to say loop this a lot shorter, test. See, that's going to be our loop back point. Test 1, test 1, test 1, test 1, test 1, 1, test 1, test 1, 2. So hopefully you find that useful. That has been our session view. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at exporting your audio and some other useful information about handling your media files.